it's Bunny, and it's time, finally, for my First Impression Friday. That was supposed to be up this past Friday, but I didn't remember this past Friday was Christmas. If you guys follow me on Snapchat, I did a survey last week asking you guys which palettes y'all would like for me to review this week's First Impression Friday. We did a little survey. It was so much fun. And the competition was between the new Tartelette in Bloom palette or the new Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. I asked you guys to save the picture of which palette y'all wanted me to do swatches for and to do a review of. And it was a pretty close neck and neck race, but the Tartelette in Bloom palette did win. So I saved a picture of how many people saved each snap. Chocolate Bonbons was requested 12.2 thousand times, but the Tartelette in Bloom palette, that picture was saved 13.8 thousand times. So this is the one that we are gonna do today. Please excuse my nails. They look really crusty and like they were eaten by rats. And you already know why that is if you watched yesterday's Does This Thing Really Work fail video. I wanted to go ahead and film this video for you guys at the same time because I actually used most of this palette to do my makeup that I have on today. Before I go any further though, I just want to ask you guys, for those of y'all that still wanted to see the Chocolate Bonbons video, and for those of you who don't follow me on Snapchat, just go ahead and like this video if you would like for me to do swatches and a review of this palette as well. And we can totally do that. Maybe I'll do 2 First Impression Fridays in one day. If you guys were here for a whole year, then you know that I was kind of part of the original Tartelette palette, which came out January of this year. This is that palette's little sister, and I will have to say that I love the packaging. I think it is just gorgeous. It's amazing. If you look at it really up close, you can see that it is like purple and pink flower petals. I don't know what happened to the box. I was gonna save the box for the video. I guess I ate it because it's not here. So that's awkward. Side note. I wonder what paper would taste like. Or can you imagine if they made palettes in edible packaging? Edible paper packaging. It's like a palette and lunch all in one. When I first opened this palette up and I looked at the colors, I just knew that I was going to love it. And I must admit, I may love this palette even more than the original Tartelette palette. I'm sure I'm not the only person saying that. I will say I do kind of wish that they would have picked like different creators and makeup artists to represent each one of these shades like they did with us with the original palette, because I just think that that is a ton of fun. I think that this palette is very versatile. It's mostly mattes and a couple more kind of like metallic shimmers. Once again, I wouldn't call these like shimmer glittery kind of shades. Let's just go ahead in order shade by shade and go ahead and comment down below as I'm reading off these different names and let me know if you are going to represent a shade, which shade name describes you best. I would love to hear that down below. I just kind of, I don't know, I love the names of these shadows and I think that there's kind of like one for everybody. The very first shade in the palette is the lightest shade. It is called Charmer and it's kind of like a bone color, like a cream color. I think that this would be great to use as a base. It seems very brightening. You could also do under your brow bone, do a little bit of highlighting amongst darker colors. The next color in the palette is Jet Setter, which definitely does not describe me at all. I would be like the sit-at-homer. Can they come up with a shade for that? I do have to say I love this shade though. I think it could be great for a lot of things. A transition color, in the crease, on the lid. I mean, you can basically use any shadow for anything that you want, ever. There's no rules in makeup. This is a soft toffee brown matte. It is delicious. The next shade in the palette is Rocker, and it is a champagne rose gold kind of color. And as you guys can see, this one is definitely very metallic. This is such a smooth metallic though. Every single one of the metallics in this palette, except for maybe one, we're gonna talk about the funky one later, are very soft and they just kind of like melt in your skin like butter. I love that one. The next one is Smoke Show, which is a very smoldering deep brown color. It's very close to black when you look at it. It's not black, it is in fact a dark, dark brown color. And I'm not exactly sure how the term smoke show would describe somebody. I've never heard that one before. I don't know what that means. What does it mean? Somebody tell me. The next shade in the palette is kind of one of my favorites. I have it on today. I used it to kind of blend the outer edges of my makeup and just kind of like, I basically just went like this around my eyeball with it. It is called Flower Child, and it is a matte peach petal. Do peaches have petals? I don't know. I don't know why I wrote down peach petal. Sometimes I just make up things, but it is a very soft, sort of peachy color. Also, I think that this could be another base option. If you didn't want something that's like super, super bright or very close to white, this could be another alternate option for you out of this palette. The next shade is one of my favorites out of the palette. It is called Smarty Pants, and I have it on today. Once again, I kind of used it as a transition shade and to blend some things out. It is a nice, soft, matte fawn beige. Like if you imagine a little fawn, a little deer prancing majestically through the forest, that is what this color reminds me of. Next is Firecracker. And I kind of wrote something weird when I was writing down my little notes on what these different shadows look like, the colors and stuff. But I literally wrote like, imagine a Roman soldier marching into battle, because this is the color of his armor, if that makes any sense to you. At the time, it made sense to me when I wrote it down. It is kind of like a metallic, fiery bronze shade. It's definitely very shimmery, very shiny. I would definitely, can I say definitely a couple more times? Definitely, definitely. I would use this on the center part of my lid. Normally, I like to add a pop of shimmer or glitter right to the center of my eyelid, much as I've done today. And that is what I would do with this particular color. The next shade in here is called Activist. Ooh, look at my arm hairs in this swatch. Isn't it great being a mammal? Just looking at these two colors, which hopefully I'm doing some kind of fancy editing right now, showing you these two colors in comparison. I wrote down that it is very, very similar to Smoke Show. Maybe it is a little bit plummier, while Smoke Show is more brown. But if there was like a competition about which shadow was darkest in the palette, I would have to say that those two are pretty closely in a tie situation going on. The next shade in the palette, there has been so much discussion over, and it is called Funny Girl. And my friend Leanne actually did her own swatching video of this palette, and she was saying that Funny Girl is kind of named Funny Girl because maybe there's something a little bit funny going on with it. And I have read some other things on Instagram, just seen on the internet, where some people are saying that this shadow in their particular palette it doesn't work the greatest. And I don't know, I kind of have like a weird experience with it myself. I will just say that it's kind of tougher. Like how I was saying earlier, all these shadows kind of blend into your skin like butter. And I'm showing you guys the whole palette again because just from swatching these shadows each once, like the Tarte logo almost disappears because the shadows are so buttery. But with Funny Girl, it's a lot harder, it's a lot tougher. That's the only thing I can say. Just running my finger over it several times still almost didn't make a dent in the Tarte logo at all. I definitely tried my best to get an awesome swatch out of this color because I know like sometimes shadows kind of change a little bit over time where they become a little bit creamier or a little bit easier to work with. with, from the oils from your skin, coming off the brush or coming off your finger, however you apply makeup, and then touching it back on your eye. It kind of makes them a little bit easier to work with. But so far, this shadow, I couldn't get even that great of a swatch out of it. I don't know. I would have to say that this color would be impossible to apply with a brush. Maybe you could apply it with your finger. It is a pretty color, but it's kind of funky is the only thing I can say. I don't know. It's not like I hate it, but definitely it wouldn't be like my first choice go-to color in this palette, especially when all the other shadows in this palette are amazing. I'm not in love with that one. Moving right along, the next shade is Sweetheart, which is very, very, very beautiful. It is one of my favorite shades in the palette. It is a nice blush rose matte color. Once again, I would use this for a transition shade to blend out some harsher, darker colors. I love it. It's gorgeous. The majority of the shadows that I have on my pupils today is the next shadow, which is Rebel, and this is hands down my favorite shade in the entire palette. I'm obsessed with it. It's gorgeous. It is a beautiful matte burgundy kind of color. It's almost like a reddish brown burgundy. I love burgundy shadows. I think it looks great with my blue eyeballs. And I don't know, burgundy is just some of my favorite shadow shades. I love it. Ever since Marsala was the color of the year, I have just fallen in love with these kind of shadow colors. The next color in the palette, the last color, which is called Leader, is my second favorite color. It is a really, really deep matte burgundy. It goes well with Rebel. I used this shade today as a liner shadow. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to tell anymore. I feel like when I use kind of like a eyeshadow as a liner shade, it kind of disperses a little bit and just kind of like mixes with the other eyeshadows as I'm blinking. I think it makes a great liner shade, especially if you love plum and burgundy shadows. I don't know, there's at least like 6 or 7 shadows in this palette that are like new instant favorites. If you're looking for a palette right now that has a lot of warm neutrals in it, I would definitely say pick this one up. It's all around just a great palette. If I had to choose what shadow I would represent in this palette, I feel like the one that's most descriptive of me is Funny Girl, which is kind of a shame because it's probably my least favorite shadow in the palette, but just based on the name and not the shade at all, that is probably the color or the shadow name that I would say best represents me. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you guys so much for being here today and for watching and hanging out with me. If you're not already and you'd like to be, go ahead and hit that button down below, subscribe, become a member of the Swamp Family, and give an alligator its wangs. Also, if you want, you can like me on Facebook, facebook.com/graveyardgirl, or you can follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, or Instagram at Graveyard Girl, same way it's spelled here. I love you guys so much, and I will see y'all tomorrow.